Maayong gabi sa atong mga suking tigpaminaw. Ania na sa takaron sa lain nga episode sa atong programang Partners in Law. This is Attorney Charisse Faith Pepito Sohor of the Commission on Elections. And with me right now is...
Maayong gabi kanatong tanan. Ako si Prosecutor Olive Grace Tapayan Hebron of the Office of the City Prosecutor, Karkar City, Cebu of the Department of Justice National Prosecution Service.
Yes, so maayong gabi. Welcome to another episode of Partners in Law. And tonight, unsa man ato ang i-discuss, Liv?
Karong gabi, we will be discussing about violence against women and children.
Okay.
And this is what we are very passionate about, not because we are women.
Yes,
no?
of course,
Dili ni siya
yes.
because of our
Oo.
own biases, because we are women, but because violence against women and children is a worldwide concern.
Yes.
And in fact, being a worldwide concern, this is really also the anchor of Cebu Lady Lawyers Association,
Yes.
where we are members.
Yes, of course, because CELIA is the leading Lady Lawyers Association or group here in Cebu, and we are one with the 18-day campaign of the PCW or the Philippine Commission on Women, di ba, Liv? PCW Memorandum Number 2022-4 ang nag-aghat ni sa mga government agencies or like us sa COMELEC o sa DOJ to conduct activities in relation to the 18-day campaign against violence against women. So mauni karon ang
Which is
ato
the
ang-
reason also for the past 18 days we have seen a lot of government activities.
Yes,
from
yes.
Zumba to parade.
Then there's orange.
Where orange
Oh,
campaign. Those are all
yes.
campaigns against to combat violence against women and children, and also for people to know what is really violence against women and children, because for some, if they are already in that situation, they think that is normal already,
Yes.
when in truth and in fact it is not.
And we must be aware po no nga ang kaning violence against women is very pervasive, not just here in the Philippines but also globally. Why? Based on the statistics given out by the PSA, 1 in 4 Filipino women within the age bracket 15 to 49 has experienced physical, emotional, and or sexual abuse. So sa Philippines alone na siya, but globally also.
Globally mo na, we experience 35%, meaning
That's so,
1 of
yeah.
3 women experience physical and sexual violence or abuse.
So that's why we are conducting this series of information awareness nga naay balaod. Not just here but globally, but sa ato ang setting, the Philippine setting, we will discuss tukion nato ang balaod RA 9262. This is
Our Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act, it took effect last March 27, 2004.
so dugay na.
Yes.
So pila na ka years, more than 50, 20?
Oh,
More or less 15
yes.
15 years. Yes.
And then di ko kalimot sa effectivity date, kay birthday mo na ako.
Okay.
so,
So, ikaw, gidi- ay.
so mo na siya. So, kidding aside, mo na, we are really, Attorney Charisse mentioned about violence against women and children, the RA 9262.
Yes.
So, we will now talk about the coverage of RA 9262. Who are these covered persons under RA 9262?
Okay.
So RA 9262 or our Violence Against Women Children Act covers all women, including their children, women in which they have their intimate partners. So intimate partners could be their spouse, which they have bahalag dili nila spouse, pwede live-in relations, pwede sad whom they have sexual or dating relationship. So and then since we discovered persons where women have their intimate or dating relationship or against their spouse, it also covers certain abuses.
Okay. So klaro to nga the offended party
Or the victim.
The victim, okay. The victim in cases involving RA 9262 is a woman or a child. The offender, the offender is the intimate partner. So
Yes.
may intimate partner katong husband, ex-husband, live-in partner, unsa pa na siya live, boyfriend, girlfriend, whom the woman or the offended party or the victim had dating or sexual relationship.
Yes.
Mauna siya ay basihan na sa kanang RA 9262.
So we will also talk about these acts of abuses. So mo ni ato ang physical abuse, you have your sexual abuse, we have the economic and we also have our psychological abuse. So balik Attorney Charis, no? Earlier we talk about the persons. So how about kung you are the paramour and you are on a live-in relationship?
You are the kabit, kay di ba?
Oo.
In every successful man
Is
there
one-
is
one-
one woman.
Oh.
For every unsuccessful man, there are two women. Anyway, let's go back. Sige.
Oh. So-
With regards to the issue, Fiscal Olive, regarding anang kabit, sige, kabit.
Actually-
Covered ba na siya? Makafile ba siya RA 9262 sa iya?
Actually, this is a recent,
sugar daddy?
this is a very recent decision
Case,
by our
okay.
Supreme Court in Cabañas versus People of the Philippines. GR 187175. Here, the Supreme Court said the violence against women and children, RA 9262, is not limited for those who are under the confinement of marriage. In
Okay.
fact, it included dating and sexual relations. One sexual act, bisag kausa lang mo, you are already covered and protected under RA 9262. So if it covers that, it also covers women in illicit relationships.
Okay.
So bahalag kabit ka or bahalag paramour, it's not the law encourages it, but you are also covered under such protection.
Okay, so in that Supreme Court decision, Fiscal Olive, it says that the illicitness of a relationship a woman engages does not diminish her
Yes.
dignity. Meaning, masipagkabit siya kung siya naka-experience of abuse in that kind of relationship, pwede gud ay gihapon siyang maka-file by reason, no,
that they have a dating
or
rela-
sexual relationship.
And it is not a defense.
Yes.
Nga, kabit ramang ka. So it's not a defense. It's never a defense.
Yeah.
So because again, every woman, as we mentioned earlier, have their very own dignity.
Okay.
And then violence against women and children is really an equalizing factor between a man and a woman. So
yes.
so it's being an equalizing factor between a man and a woman. So it protects the woman regardless
Okay.
of their status.
So she will be protected by the law, which is RA 9262, no? The law that values her and her children's dignity and guarantees full respect for their human rights. So
Yes.
so sila gihapon covered gihapon ana.
So now regarding also we mentioned child kanina as
Sige.
covered person. So since we mentioned child as a covered persons, usually children here under violence against women and children are children of these women, covered women, which we have dating or sexual relations, whether legitimate or illegitimate.
Okay, yes.
And aside from these children, whether illegitimate, our Supreme Court for protection orders ba? Di ba one of the our Supreme Court in the protection order rule on violence against women and children by the Supreme Court, a child diri pwede above 18 for
Okay.
purposes of protection order.
Yes.
And that is clarified by the Supreme Court in Estacio versus Estacio.
Okay,
na
so
to
what
nga case.
happened in that case, Attorney Olive?
So in Estacio versus Estacio na to nga case, our dear Supreme Court nangayo mangunig protection order ang victim. And then included sa protection order sa victim kay ang iyang children nga above 18 na.
Okay.
Muna ni ana ang husband, ni ana ang accused nga they are already above 18 years old, so of legal age. So we should not include them in the issue of protection orders. And the Supreme Court said it is clear in the Supreme Court rules on violence against women and children nga these children wala gi-distinguish as to the age. Kay ang very essence of the law is dili ka mo anha sa balay to avoid the possibility of more violence. So kung anha ka in the guise of going to your children because they're above 18, it diminishes. It takes away the very essence of the law, which is the very protection of women and their child.
Yes, that's
so,
correct.
So because of that, gi-include sa rule, but we are just referring to rule and the protection orders nga regardless of the age.
Yes, because according to this law, children are defined as those aged 18 and below or older for as long as they are incapable of taking care of themselves. So di ay ito, what if 18 years old and above na? Pero has the mind of a 6 years
Yes.
old. So covered yung gihapon siya at
Yes.
fiscal olive.
And for
Okay.
purposes of protection orders, pwede ra below, above
Okay.
18.
So-
for purposes lang of protection
So
order.
another diri na punta sa kaning kuan fiscal olive sa kaning gitawag nato og balik ta atong sexual or dating relationship. What if na I will present a scenario. What if this couple is in a lesbian relationship, meaning girl o girl. The offended party is a woman, and of course the offender is a
Woman.
lesbian.
Ah.
Okay. So unsa man na siya, covered gihapon na siya?
Here, the Supreme Court didn't say as to who is the possible accused.
Yes.
It only said the RA 9262 didn't say who is the accused. It only say the victim. The victim is a woman and her child. And there are the acts are those acts stated in our acts of abuses. Therefore, the accused could be a man or a lesbian.
Yes, so
kaya wala mang gisulti.
So klaro na, no?
Sa RA
Klaro na,
9262.
no? Those in a lesbian relationship, no? If they experience abuse, may it be physical, emotional, psychological, or economic, they can still file under RA 9262 for as long as you are a woman, you are in a sexual or dating relationship with your lesbian partner, and your lesbian partner kanang naghatag sa imo
Acts that are constitute our series of abuses.
So pwede ra gid gihapon
So,
na.
karon we talk about acts that constitute series of abuses. And then kanina, we said it in passing. What are these acts? So first, we go for physical abuse.
Yes.
So physical abuse, so these are the abuses that that are physical in nature, mo na nakulatahan, namoli,
Yes.
namaw, nasugpaan. And actually, this physical abuse, we have this beautiful case of mo gid atong landmark case no katukang Marie Vicenosa nga case nga
Si battered woman syndrome.
about battered woman syndrome.
Yes.
Kay in the Marie Vicenosa case, here the Supreme Court kay ang iha ding backgrounder sa ihang kaso kay kani siya iyang bana sige kahubog.
Si pangulata sa
O,
iyaha.
kumahubog sa iyang bana mo din nakulatahon din na siya. So mo na we have the series of battery.
Yes.
Nya karon nakabantay siya iyang bana hubog naman sa kaayo.
Yes.
So because siya with the fear and expectation nga kulatahon na sad siya ihag yung napatay iyang bana.
Okay.
So
Because of the prior acts, no, nga nay precedence nga kaybaw na gid siya nga once mahubog kulatahon na pud siya. So there came a point, boiling
Na-
point na nga
nga ngura nag self-defense
Self-defense
iya ba?
na.
Oh, and we will continue no kay karon we will have our advertisement. We will continue for what is physical abuse and this series of abuses.
Okay, so let's pause for a few reminders from our sponsors. Okay, so where did we left off Fiscal Olive? Sa katong physical violence, no? So it was said that one of the acts of violence is physical violence in which the offender no? The offender threatens, causes, or attempts to cause physical harm or violence to the woman or her child. So yes,
So
unsay atong
sakto
madugan?
ka ayo na Attorney Cha, no? So we earlier we discussed about the Marivic Hinosa
Yes,
case,
the battered woman syndrome.
and the battered woman syndrome. In that case, the Supreme Court said, for you to have a battered woman, to be you considered to be a battered woman, you must experience the cycle of violence.
Yes.
But in that case, since she hasn't completed the cycle of violence, ang gihatag ra Supreme Court mitigating ra siya nga circumstance, which
okay.
is so sad for Marivic Hinosa. But with the passing of Republic Act 9262, klaro kay diha nga bahalag dili complete ang bahalag dili complete ang battery, bahalag dili complete ang cycle of violence in terms of battery.
Yes.
She is still considered as a battered
Yes, because
woman.
why? In the definition itself, physical violence, causing, threatening, or attempting to cause. So,
Exact, true.
wala pa ma-complete ang cycle.
Yes, tinuod.
Alang attempt or threatening, no?
So because of
katukang
that,
hinaw sa DI Fiscal Olive, dapat yun.
mitigating ra siya. But now with Republic Act 9262, which we are very thankful, even if incomplete siya cycle of battery, it's now a justifying circumstance. When we talk about justifying circumstance, how do we explain this, no, for us lawyers? Dali na lang.
Sige,
But
Fiscal Olive, you explain to them
So,
in the most simplest or layman term of unsa man ang justifying
So
circumstance.
when we talk about justifying circumstance, naatay acts, there is in a way crime, kay naamay homicide, naay murder, nahitabo.
Yes.
However, because just like self-defense, which is also a justifying circumstance, the acts of the victim nga naka-cause such in a way criminal acts,
Yes.
her acts is justified. Thus there is no criminal or civil liability. Di siya mapriso og wala pa siya, di sad siya pwede ra sad siya dili mobayad og moral and other form of damages because her very actions, just like self-defense, is justified
Yes.
because of the imminent threat to her life.
Yes, and of course, there is no criminal intent on his on her part, no,
Yes.
walay malis kay again, as what you said, it was self-defense. So kung self-defense, there was no criminal intent on your part. Okay, sige, fiscal.
And
unsa
then,
pa?
since we talk about justifying, how about those ni Tabang? Like ako ni Tabang ramang ko, actually those who help a victim of violence against women and their children are exempt from criminal, administrative, and also civil liability.
That's good to
which
know.
is,
Kay basig na ay uban mang good,
di
no,
ko
nga
kuha na
kanang
kay-
silingan, oy, di ta mangilabot ana kay maapil patas kiniha ay or
Oh,
something.
ay,
So
away
at least
asawa na.
now they know, no, that if they help, no, a woman who is in an abusive relationship, anya, for example, nakita nila nga kanang nag in the middle na sa kanang grave na kayo ang threat, sa imminent ang threat sa offended party, they can help, no, without incurring any criminal liability. Sakto ba, Fiscal Olive?
Yes. So after Ana, we will now discuss, no, about sexual violence.
So what encompasses sexual violence? What is unsa man ni siya, rape, unsa pa?
So when I'll just quote the law, no?
Okay.
Sexual violence refers to an act which is sexual in nature, which is committed against a woman or her child, and this could be rapes, your sexual harassment, acts of lasciviousness.
How about Fiscal Olive, kanang for example, naamon tay makit-an anang kanang mga well, it's rampant, no, na may mga nangadakpan na gid ana nga mismo ang ginikanan gi prostitute ilahang anak o kana covered na siya.
Yes, although it's covered by violence against women and children, but we will really go, there's also another law. We have the Trafficking in Persons Act, we have Republic Act 7610.
Okay.
So there are also other laws which are in a way similar to
Okay.
RA 9262.
Okay.
So ang atuan lang gid aning sexual violence is this is committed again by those we have intimate relations by a woman which she has intimate relations
Or dating
or dating
relationship.
relations, and then this includes treating a woman or her child as a sex object. And then most ito, prostituting the woman or a child, or causing or attempting to cause the woman or the child or the victim to engage in any sexual activity by force, threat, physical or other harm, or threaten to physically or harm them. And with that I will just add this one in, we might say sexual abuse o niya rape, pwede din na siya may tabo minyo man mo, di ba? Isn't it your
marital rape. Because when we talk about rape, it doesn't matter that you are married or not, boyfriend, girlfriend, for as long as the offended party did not consent to the sexual act. So kung gipugos ka, hindi ka ganahan, well, that's considered as rape.
Yes, if I may add also, there's a ruling in People versus Humawan.
Yes, Fiscal.
The Supreme Court said it that the man doesn't own, even if you are husband.
You are not a chattel. You are not property of your husband.
Yes, and even if you are legally married, the man doesn't own the woman's body.
Sakto.
And then more so, if the rape goes on in your own abode, where your abode, you're supposed to have your rest and relaxation, and there you don't feel so at peace with your very own, mas grabe noon, di ba? Because we consider our own abode as rest and recreation, and then for us to
feel hinuon ka, ma-feel threatened, hinuon inside the four corners of your home. So, muna'y pinakalisod.
Yeah, so mauna in here in the case of Humawan, the Supreme Court considered marital rape. And in fact, amo asad yun in practice
yes, we usually file sa inyong kanang ipang-handle nga cases, Fiscal.
We usually file the rape kung marital rape because the penalty is higher.
Okay.
So we usually go kung asa ang taas ng penalty.
Mga bana,
so when we will be filing cases, we usually go for those who have higher penalty. Kaya ba mangyud ta nga in kung ma-file na natong information, and then it is the right of the accused also to know the cause of the allegations against them. So we usually go for the higher penalty.
So we are done with sexual violence, So klaro kaayo to nga pagka discuss ni Fiscal Olive. So let's go to psychological violence. So there is no physical manifestation of this form of violence, Fiscal Olive. So can you please tell our televiewers unsa maning psychological violence, being as a BS psychology graduate, unsa man?
Aside from being a psychology major, for us, when we talk about psychological violence, it goes for the very mental and emotional aspect of the person. For some, it has physical manifestations. Mo na ang uban physical manifestations is dili katulog.
Yes. So sleepless nights, and then
anxiety. Ang uban kanang ang stress nila magpalpitate ka nang di pa kakainom og pagkape pero nagpalpitate na imong heart.
Mo na kita mo psychosomatic, Fiscal.
Kana psychosomatic. Mo na mo gawa siya. But in a way, here when we talk about psychological violence, it refers to acts or omission causing, this is the key phrase, mental or emotional suffering to the victim, which is not limited to intimidation, harassment, stalking, damage to property, public ridicule or humiliation, or repeated verbal abuse, and this includes mental infidelity. So when we talk about this mental infidelity,
what's mental infidelity sa para masabtan sa ato ang mga televiewers, unsa man ang mental, just quick overview lang.
Yes, actually the Supreme Court in XXS versus People of the Philippines also confirms that acts of infidelity of a spouse. So kanang mga naay number 2, number 3, number 4.
More to behind every unsuccessful man are 2 women.
So kana mo na that's really very, in a way, unfortunate, very common in society. So when we talk about infidelity of a spouse, that is the very infidelity of a spouse is an act of psychological abuse already, which causes mental and emotional anguish and suffering to a spouse.
Yes.
And then here, our Supreme Court said in XXS versus People of the Philippines na it is immaterial nga ang asawa wala nakakita.
Basta for as long as
nakaibaw siya, bahalag nakaibaw siya from a second party.
yes, because it causes mental or emotional suffering. That's the key word, that's the key phrase in order for an offended party to experience psychological violence, no?
Yes.
So I believe kani mga ingon ani mao na ning musulod na ning they will engage the services of a psychologist ang uban ipaadto sa sakto ba na fiscal sa pink room para i-assess ang ilahang psychological state. Yes.
When we go to the mao na siya ang usual advice is to assess the mental and emotional anguish.
Yes.
However, for us to file psychological abuse, it is not necessary that a woman suffered. It's not necessary nga mabuang ang babae. So
kung nabuang siya fiscal sama niya pag-file na kung nabuang niya siya.
So it's not it is immaterial. In fact, in Arasano versus People of the Philippines, the Supreme Court said psychological violence is an indispensable element of violence against women and children, where it is necessary. Ang key element ragid, as what we mentioned, is emotional anguish and mental suffering. However, the law does not require proof that the victim becomes psychologically ill due to the psychological violence done by the abuser.
On her, yes.
So it's not a requirement. Kailangan siya mas psychologically ill. So when we talk about psychological illness, we have this series. So we have the DSM-5. We give battery of psychological tests. It's not necessary nga siya magka-manic depressive disorder siya.
Manage personality disorder. Not necessary to go to that point.
What is just essential is that there is emotional anguish that she experienced.
Okay.
So moingon ta, unsa may difference anang emotional anguish? So siya naa siya emotional anguish, dili siya katulog. Because of
Mauna
that,
na siya
it
manifestations,
causes depression on her.
Yes.
So it is not kuan nga nagmanic depressive disorder pa siya. It's not a requirement nga naa siya it's not a requirement nga naa siya psychological kanang sakit. Because of that na no.
Okay, klaro na siya, no. So let's go to the last, no, abuse
before attorney Cha, no, we might say we have a lot of overseas Filipino workers, and ang usually ang spouse, ang female mo'y mahabilin there sa Philippines, and then we might ask, what if naa sa abroad ang abuser, and then ako nakaibaon lang ko nga akong bana nailain dito sa bawas.
So muna giingon nga for every port report,
every place replace mo na sa ayaw lang
for every place replace. So unsa man, so okay, so arita sa issue kana sakto sa the fiscal olive kanang what if the bana, no, is in outside the territorial jurisdiction
the Philippines, pwede
ba na ma-file sa RA 9262?
Mo na in AAA versus BBB, di kita kalimut ani nga case. AAA versus BBB. The Supreme Court said even if outside the Philippines, ang abuse was made, the abuser is outside of the Philippines. Ibutang nato karon na sa Qatar or wherever,
or nag-angkurahi ngadto sa, let's say, Europe, o sige nag-angkurahi dito. Okay. Pero ang asawa na
is in the Philippines. Unya, let's say in Facebook nakakita siya nga
naay kagakus-gakus
nanaylain dito. Nanaylain niya. Unya, hala mo di wala nagpadana na ako sa akong mga
nakay. Wanay aluti.
Okay, ang aluti duan na di gihatag siyang bag-o karon.
One time kuan ngadto, yan splurge dito. So unsa may pwede mabuhat
The Supreme Court said the Philippines can still take jurisdiction with RA 9262 because the very issue here is the emotional and mental suffering
inflicted
on the victim,
wife,
which is in the Philippines. Ang importante lang, the court where the case was filed is has jurisdiction is the place
Residence of the private complainant. Okay.
So with that, we can say bahalag na sa abroad. As long as ang victim na sa Philippines, we can still file as long as ang case dito gi-file asa ang resident.
So
sa
klaro
complainant.
no, so katong ato ang mga televiewers nga swak ang ilahang situation sa gistorya karon ni Fiscal Olive, pwede gyud gihapon mo file sa regional trial court where you reside. No?
Yes.
Okay.
Bahalag abroad. It's not
Sige.
a
Bahalag abroad ang
limitation.
imuhang ang offender. Okay.
It's not a limitation.
Fiscal, we will pause for a few reminders from our sponsors. We will be back in a few minutes. Okay, so Fiscal Olive has comprehensively discussed about the first 3 acts of violence committed against the women or their children. No? So this encompasses physical violence, sexual violence, and psychological violence. So diri na ta sa ikaupat, Fiscal Olive. Kaning gitawag na tong economic abuse. Unsa man ning economic abuse?
When we talk about economic abuse, we'll just use of the definition under RA 9262.
Okay.
Under RA 9262, it includes withdrawal of financial support or preventing the victim from engaging in any legitimate profession, occupation, business, or activity, and then deprivation or threat of deprivation of financial resources and the right to the use and enjoyment of conjugal, community, or property which they own in common, destroying household property, controlling the victim's own money or properties, or solely controlling the conjugal money or properties.
So sa langtod ba kastorya, these are acts that
makes the
make
woman
or attempt to make the woman
very
financially dependent on her abuser, correct?
And also it is, aside from making the woman financially dependent on her abuser, it also curtails the very financial needs of a woman, because when we most women are the ones who are taking care of their children. With that, they have their own needs and they have their needs of their children.
Sometimes in taking care of their children, we hear stories now. Sometimes in taking care of their children, they already forget taking care of themselves.
Tinuod yun na. Tinuod yun na. So, here, since most women as a general rule take care of their own children, so pag nabanggit kay kinanglan nga gasto, pagpakaon, pagpagata sa imong anak, papa-eskwela, although support is a joint responsibility between a man and a woman, so being a joint responsibility, dili rasad ang babae lang
magtambayayong sila. Dili kay ang usara tambayayong. So dapat silang duhag yun, because kanang ilaha man ang obligasyon, dili lang kay tungod ako mo'y padre di pamilya, ako maoy magsud ikaw lang dinha sa balay. So dili gina pwede nang ingon ana, otherwise you will be held liable for economic abuse. So kanang hinay-hinay lang sa ato ang mga men nga who see themselves as the only voice in the family. Okay.
However, we may also say true, the spouse or the partner has the responsibility to support. We also take into consideration the capacity to support. That's why in Supreme Court, in Christian Acharon versus People of the Philippines, this is November 9, 2021 case. The Supreme Court said, RA 9262 was not meant to make the partners of women criminals just because they fail or unable to financially provide for their families. Courts cannot send individuals to jail of their mere inability without malice or evil intention to provide for their respective families. Therefore, there must be the intent not to provide support. Klaro gyud kay nang intent.
Na criminal intent, na again, malice na po. Okay.
Kay we have to understand, especially with the pandemic, not every male has the propensity to provide support. What if siya mismo na wag tangag trabaho niya, musuporta pa siya. So we
Yes.
take that into consideration. That's why we will also check the capacity of the other party to support.
Okay,
Kaya ba
correct.
gyud niya na ba siya
Yes.
trabaho ikasuporta?
Okay.
Unya, kung iyang trabaho ikasuporta, let's say iyang sweldo is 6,000 a month, siguro
Isod
mga
kaayo,
no,
igo.
8,000, no?
Oo.
So we see ba about the capacity?
So yes. So Fiscal Olive, so let's say, okay, we have already thoroughly discussed the acts, no? The physical violence, the psychological, sexual, and then that's the economic abuse. So if you are the offended party, unsa may mga remedies provided by law. So let's have a quick run through lang. So unsa man ni siya? Like they can mga
File
protection
for a
orders.
protection order.
Sige, let's discuss about protection order real quick. Sige.
So we have the rule on protection order issued by the Supreme Court where we can file in the barangay. We
Yeah,
have the
barangay
barangay protection
protection order,
order.
yes.
We have the temporary protection orders and we have the permanent protection orders.
Okay.
With that protection orders, ang very essence of our protection orders is to protect the victim so that she can no longer suffer and to stop the possibility where the victim will suffer such abuses.
Yes, so these protection orders are issued precisely for the purpose of preventing further
Yes.
acts dili mapadayon ang abuses nga na iyahang na-experience against the hands of her abuser. Okay?
Which is the reason why since protection orders is to prevent further abuses.
Yes.
Protection ang dili ra ang victim pwede mo file.
Okay.
So na any person who has
personal knowledge of the crimes or the abuses committed against the victim. So again, kani fiscal, how can I apply for a protection order? So it's here no in our notes nga the application of the protection order must be in writing, signed and verified under oath by the applicant, no? So for example, moadto siya sa scenario lang fiscal. What can the woman do if the barangay official failed or refused to give the BPO within 24 hours from application? When we say 24 hours, this is really urgent na gyud.
Yes.
So kung langay-langayon, maingon, ay, amo pirma, wala pa man dire, nagbakasyon pa, so unya na lang. Di man na
Aside
pwede
from
nga makakuha.
administrative liability,
Yes,
no?
so-
Pwede siya makapangayo, maka-request assistance to our police officers, no?
Yes.
Regarding
So
that
mga
one.
opisyalis sa ato ang barangay, inyong nahuna nga, you can be held administratively liable if you make a delay, no? Langay-langayon ninyo ang pag-issue ana because a life is at stake, no? So you must issue it within 24 hours from application, okay? So Fiscal Olive, na magitaan ni gitawag nga kanang barangay conciliation, mediation, di ba? Especially if it involves members of the same family. So another question ani nga maybe, no? Ay pangutana sa ato ang mga suking ti paminaw. Can the barangay officials mediate or conciliate, no, na conciliation sa kaning mga kanang victims and between the offender and the offended party, no, in relation to RA 9262? Pwede ba silang mukandak o conciliation?
Actually, under RA 9262, no, it amends our local government code which allows mediation for purposes of violence against women and children, because we have to understand that violence against women and children, any crimes, any violations that is VAUSI related is a crime against the state. Being a crime against the state, such is not subject to any form of compromise agreement.
Yes,
Because it is a crime against the state. Therefore, the task now of the barangay is to protect the victim. That's why we might ask, hala, mo issue dahil upon verified complaint, issuehan dayon siya
okay.
og barangay protection order. What mo ingon unya ang offender or the spouse by BPO, di na ba ako kauli sa mong balay? Is it now a violation of my right to due process? Di ba? Wa ko gipatubag, isuhan dayon. Actually that is raised no in the cases of Jesus Garcia versus Drilon nga it's not a violation of the right to due process nga
Okay.
isyuhan dayon because the very essence here is to protect the victim. Anyway, it is the katong imong giingon ganiha attorney Cha, when you filed for a petition for protection order, it is under oath. Since
Verified.
it is verified. It is verified and in fact under oath. Being verified and under oath, kung magpataka sad ug mamakak sad ang og file, the victim can be liable for other offenses.
So klaro to no,
Oo.
nga, as to the question whether
Oo.
the barangay officials can conciliate or mediate, klaro kaayo
Nga
that the
dili.
barangay officials, the police or the social worker should not attempt to conciliate or mediate, force or kanang tell the woman
Nga ayaw na
to
lang
give up, ay na lang to give up,
Oo.
unsa ni, to
Bahalag hubag
attempt
na
to,
kay ang
to give
mata.
up her legal action or application of a BPO, TPO or PPO kay lisod na kaayo kay
Bahalag hubag na kay mata, klaro na kaayo nga na daghang bunog, ayaw na lang file kay bana na nimo.
grabe sad grabe
Hubag na kaayo. Kuan na lang dili na siya pwede, ha? Kay because here what we need to do is really to protect the victim and her child for possible abuses.
Okay. So here are possible scenarios, fiscal. Okay. So what if my husband has been cheating on me for over 5 years now, okay? With various women. Is there a way nga maka-file siya og vow in filing against him? No?
Yes, we discussed that earlier.
Yes, earlier.
No? And,
Run through na
we
lang.
discussed that earlier. No, nga not just bahalag, we don't have to wait for 3 years. A
Yes.
single act of infidelity. It can be an act or axman. A single act of infidelity, the victim has the right to file psychological abuse under violence against women and children, because infidelity, which is a form of psychological violence, and the fact that there is mental anguish, mental and
Emotional
emotional
suffering.
anguish that was suffered by the victim, the accused can already be liable. So dili pwede ta di magawa og 3 years.
Okay.
And even 1 act lang.
So, naaman ni ka ng prescriptive period na to covered itong 20 years,
Yes.
10 years. So, it's there in the law.
Yes.
Okay. So, another scenario. Kato, ganiha fiscal. My ex-husband has stopped giving me and our children support since 2009. Can I file a case against him for vow?
Yes, the spouse can file a case for vow against her very ex-husband for failing to support her and her children, because again, it is the duty of the spouse to provide support, and the fact that nga by the very act of the spouse of depriving to provide support is it diminishes the as long as makasuporta lang yun, as long as
it is within his financial
siya
capacity.
Kuan man gud it as what we mentioned, if kung kulang og support, it places the victim's hands tied nga dili siya makalihok.
So his act of withdrawing financial support, even if he is capable of giving support, is clearly an act of economic abuse.
Yes.
Okay. So katugi hapong okay na kuan na naman to no nga lesbian no, I am a lesbian in a lesbian relationship, so pwede gid gyapon siya basta ang katong acts na gyapon. So kaning threatening, okay, I've been running in fear from my husband for 3 months because he threatened to kill me. What can I do? Again,
Vowsy.
okay, bawsi gyapon na. So you nagsikag tago-tago sa imong bana niya together with your children kay kulatado lagi ka, no? So unsa may angay nilang buhaton? Again, katong BPO, they can go to their barangay and ask for a barangay protection order. Okay.
And because katago-tago siya, it can cause her mental
Yes.
anguish, emotional suffering, then pwede sa siya maka-file of case of psychological
Okay.
abuse. And we may ask ba, kung ako ang lalaki, we may ask for a man.
Yes,
gani.
kana, yeah,
Oh,
kana,
we may ask
sakto,
for
sakto.
a man ba before, why is it puro raman ang babae nga violence against women and children?
Ngano wala violence against men?
Akong asawa kuhaan ako sa iya, kung akong asawa kuhaan ako siyang sweldo, pwede siya moingon economic abuse. Ako nga bana, ako ang 13 man pigihatag man gayud nako sa iya tanan. Pwede di ko mo file og economic abuse karon sa akong asawa.
Maka-file ba sila?
Oh, pwede ba? Labi na katumbag og kadawat silang mga 13-month pay,
Christmas
di ba?
bonus,
Christmas bonus. So, here, the Supreme Court said, actually, ako na lang yung basis nga, nganong ang babay raman ang pwede ani mo file aning vows, hindi man pwede ang mga lalaki. Because in Jesus C. Garcia, our law, the Supreme Court said, our law recognized that we usually have a very paternal society. And being a paternal society, it recognized that the women is considered as marginalized. Because of that, women being the usual victims of violence against women and children, the law being the great equalizer,
Yes.
the law being passionate about restorative justice, wherein it try to restore the balance. Kung marginalize ang babae, with the law, it puts the woman in equal footing with the man. Tungod ana, ang being the great equalizer, only women can file women can be victims of violence against women
They can
and children.
only women can file only women can file cases under RA 9262. However, kung kiluoy po kay mga lalaki, if they are in an abusive relationship, unya baliktad, ang ilahan ng ang babay maoy mangulata sa ilaha, they can still file under the revised penal code. So,
In fact,
wala ingon nga, wala sila dag-anan, naagid gihapon.
Tinuod good. And here, under Vausike, this is an equalizer man. Mona, in Jesus Garcia, the Supreme Court confirms the validity of the law, the constitutionality of the law. And since you mentioned, ganiha, Attorney Cha, about the men, ang mga lalaki, sige, kulata sila sa babae, namang ubang asawa nga mas kusga, no? So, nakakulata sa mga babae. So, mauto nga, they can file physical injury in under the revised penal code.
So yes, Fiscal Olive, I believe wala na tay time, no, but thank you very much for that very informative talk about RA 9262.
And thank you also Attorney Cha, no, and Cebu Lady Lawyers Association. And also mo plug lang sad ko sa Department of Justice and National Prosecution Service, because this is we are zealous, no?
Yes.
And also the
Commission on Elections is also one with the 18-day campaign which started last November 25 until December 12. No, this is an 18-day campaign by the Philippine Commission on Women calling on all government agencies like, DOJ and COMELEC to conduct activities, in support of this advocacy for empowering women, no? So again, this is Attorney Charisse Faith P. Sohor.
And I am Prosecutor Olive Grace Tapayan.
And we are saying that each time a woman stands up for herself without claiming it, she stands up for all the women in the entire world.
Yes, because a woman, if I were to quote, the essence of the woman is to
Pang Miss Universe na, sige, go. Pang Miss
if
Universe
I were to quote, the essence of the woman is to provide encouragement and nourishment for the next generations.
Yes,
if that is the very essence of the woman, we are here to provide protection for the woman, for the protection of the next generations as well.
Okay. So yes, that ends our episode today of Partners in Law.
Thank you very much.
And also before we leave, please like and subscribe our Celia page and also our YouTube channel where you can view past episodes also of Partners in Law. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Have a great evening.